we've been talking about praying, making an effort to pray, and why we should pray. But supposing someone says, Guy, do I have to do this? Must I do these strange things? Must I? Why should I suffer? Jesus did not die so that I can suffer. Sometimes Christians interesting. But must I really suffer? Do I have to go through this? So what if you don't pray? We've been talking about men always ought to pray and not to faint. So what happens if you don't? Let us explore the hypothesis that you decide that maybe I shouldn't bother, which is what happens most of the time. You wake up at 3 and you say, I don't have to do that. I can just go on my phone. So what happens when you don't pray? When you don't pray, number one, I hope you have a pen. When you don't pray, your life is governed by happenstance. Now, happenstance, let me give you the spelling. So go to the chat and you see. Happenstance is when things occur to you by coincidence. Instead of you happening to life happens to you. You live by coincidence. You live by happenstance. Whatever happens, happens. There is even a song I used to hear my kids sing, Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. The future is for us to see. Que sera, sera. Whatever happens, you live by chance. You live by good luck. You live by bad luck. Your luck can run out. You live by good fortune or by misfortune. Your life is dependent on quirks, on twists of fate. You live by serendipity. Serendipity is the occurrence and development of events by chance in a happy or beneficial way. So sometimes things will go well. Sometimes things will go not well. You are just there. You take whatever comes. Now, let me tell you something about living by chance. Chance is not without cause. Don't think that, this whole thing of things exist in a random form, in a random phase of motion. They're always moving, banging into each other, that whole stuff. There is no such thing as things happening by chance without cause. There are two factors that govern chance and happenstance. So today your eyes are going to be opened. Hello? Yesterday you were unburdened. Today your eyes are going to be opened. There are two factors that affect chance. The first ones are natural factors. Natural factors that affect chance depend on the actions of men that actually influence which chances you're going to get. Sometimes God has given us a limited vision of things. But if He were to lift us up so that we can see everything as it is happening in the real world, like if we had a drone's eyes view, and we saw everything in proper context, then we would understand. Some of you who watch football, you expect when you go to watch football that there are two teams, there are two coaches, there are 11 players on the field, there is a referee, there are football rules. When you start playing, the one who plays better wins. Jose Mourinho, who was the coach of Chelsea and these other teams, used to say that the best team lost, out sooner that, in fact, even in spite of the rules, in spite of the ref, in spite of the players being equal, in spite of the ref, it is sometimes the games can get fixed. Someone who's supposed to score in the net just scores outside. And they have, I think it was AC Milan they banned. Was it AC Milan? One of those Milans in Italy. For an entire season. For match fixing. Juventus. What's Juventus? Thank you. I don't follow these things that much, my friend. Yeah. They banned the whole team. I know it's general rules that someone banned the team. Why? Because they are fixing the match. My friend, you think you're going to live your life by chance. The game is fixed. Someone has put a finger on the scales. You think it is reading 1 kilo, but it's 500 grams. When you don't pray, you expose yourself to life by chance, and chance is not chance. The other thing that affects chance, happenstance, is the spiritual factors. I've given the natural factors, let me give you spiritual factors. Nothing explains this thing of spiritual chance like the book of 1 Kings, chapter 22, verse 19 and verse 23. So if you can find that, 1 Kings 22, 19 to 23, KJV, this is what it says. And he said, hear thou therefore the word of the Lord. This was a prophet speaking to Ahab. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne, and all the host of heaven standing by him on his right hand and on his left. So, on his right hand, as you know, the good ones, on his left, the bad ones. Yeah, even the devil goes to heaven and talks to God. You read Job. Verse 20. And the Lord said, who shall persuade Ahab that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And one said in this manner, and another said in that manner. And there came forth a spirit, and stood before the Lord, and said, I will persuade him. And the Lord said unto him, wherewith? In other words, how will you do it? And he said, I will go forth, and I will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets all. And he said, and then the Lord said, thou shalt persuade him, and prevail also. Go forth and do it. So therefore, behold, the Lord has put a lying spirit in the mouth of all these thy prophets, and the Lord has spoken evil concerning thee. So Ahab was going to die, but the Lord needed someone to convince him to go to that war, because he was supposed to die at Ramoth Gilead. And so he called everyone, and including demons and everyone, said, who can convince that boy? I want him to. It's over with him. And the Bible says, a spirit got into prophets, a lying spirit, and they told him things, and if he executed them, he was going to die. So, let's look at 1 Kings chapter 22, verse 29, 35. So, go to 22, go 22, 29. So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, went up to Ramoth Gilead. You see? The king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, because he wanted to avoid the prophecy of the man of God. He said, I will disguise myself and enter into the battle unrecognizable, incognito. But you, the king of Judah, you can wear your robes. So the king of Israel disguised himself and went into the battle. He took physical human precaution. They said, you could die. So he said, they could shoot you, they could assassinate you. So he said, I will wear a bulletproof jacket. So authority and 2 captains, and had rule over his chariot, saying, fight neither with the small nor great, except only with the king of Israel. So it came to pass when the captains of the chariot saw Jehoshaphat, they said, surely this is the king of Israel. But remember, the king of Israel was disguised, and they turned aside to fight against him. But Jehoshaphat said, he cried out, he said, they don't kill me, I'm not the one. And it came to pass when the captains of the chariots understood and perceived that this is not the king of Israel, we are chasing a shadow, that they turned back from pursuing him. So they left the king of Israel, the king of Judah, to go by himself. Now look at verse 34. A certain man, no name, nothing, drew a bow. They really stopped pursuing. There was no reason for him to do it. He drew a bow at a venture and just like shot an arrow in the air. That arrow somehow found the king of Israel, and it struck him in such a calculated way that it hit between the joints of his armor. The man was wearing a metallic protection. The arrow could have hit and fallen, but it went between in the seams and pierced him and went inside him. So he said to his driver, turn thy hand, carry me out of the host and the army and the fight, for I am wounded. And the battle increased that day, and the king was stayed up, propped in his chariot against the Syrians, and he died, and his blood ran out into the midst of the chariot. Ahab was warned that if you go, you will die. Ahab said, I will take my own precautions. I'll wear my seatbelt. I'll put on my breastplate and my armor, and I will go. They had even stopped chasing, but a guy somehow, poof, just let off an arrow. And that arrow, by some chance, found to pierce Ahab in a place which was some way not protected. So you still think that Ahab died by chance? You think Ahab died by chance? Remember the spirit which said it will convince him to go? There was an influence on his chances, and they ended up killing him. So, good luck with good luck, and good luck with bad luck, if that's how you want to live your life. So when you don't pray, you expose yourself to living by happenstance. Hey. But can you hear me? Number 2. Number 2. When you don't pray, your life is governed by major curses in this world. Now, this one, I said I'm going to talk to you like adults. When you're going to go back and read your Bible, I'm not going to read for you everything. There are 3 major curses that affect the human race. The curse of Adam, go and read about it. God cursed Adam because of his disobedience. He said, you shall sweat for what you do, for you to survive. You shall toil, you shall hustle, you shall suffer for prosperity, you shall suffer to survive. Every man, every male on earth will, in order to make it, in order to prosper, you must toil. If you are a pastor, you must toil, you must pray, you must work, you must teach. If you are a businessman, you must hustle, if you are a farmer, you must dig. So, it's the curse of Adam. If you don't do any of those things, good luck. The second is the curse of Eve, which the curse of Eve ensures that every woman is somehow helplessly drawn to a man. The women will tell us that, true or not true? True or not true? True, yes. True or not true? Yes. Somehow you find yourself, she's going normally, everything is okay. Then she sees a man and butterflies come, and my God, my God, my God, my God, shine, helplessly drawn towards a man. That's the curse of Eve. We shall suffer through unpreventable attraction to men. And then, in marriage, you shall suffer certain suffering. I'm sorry, Paul says that those of you who want to get married, you should expect that you're going to have some trouble. You shall suffer certain suffering in marriage. And it will be a little bit of a more dose if you're a woman. Paul said, I want to save you trouble, so please don't get married. But if you get married, expect there will be a bit of suffering. And the third suffering that the curse of Eve will bring is through childbirth. Now, people have tried to avoid that, but eventually it catches up. Okay? The third curse is the curse of Ham. The curse of Ham is the curse which Ham is the one where all black people descend from. So the curse that keeps the black race in struggle. Everywhere in the world, black people tend to struggle more than other races. It's the curse of Ham. When you pray, you affect these curses. How do you affect these curses? When you don't pray, you don't affect them, so you suffer from them. So you suffer from the curse of Adam, you suffer from the curse of Eve. In the very next people, you suffer from the curse of Ham. When you pray, you affect these curses through obtaining wisdom. What is wisdom? Wisdom is knowing what to do. I'm not very complicated. I'm just telling you, wisdom is knowing what to do. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 13 to 14. Are you following? Proverbs 3, 13 to 14. Happy is the man that findeth wisdom, and the man that getteth understanding. For the merchandise of wisdom is better than the merchandise of silver, and the profit of wisdom is better than the profit of fine gold. Wisdom is more precious than rubies, and all the things you can't desire are not to be you can desire are not to be compared to wisdom. The length of days is in her right hand, and in her left hand riches and honor. When you pray, you get wisdom. Wisdom is knowing what to do. When you know what to do, you will escape the curse of Adam, you will escape the curse of Ham, you will escape the curse of Eve. When you don't pray, you will not escape. Number 3. Are we still adults or we have become children now? Number 3. When you don't pray, you will allow yourself to be governed purely, entirely, fully by the God of this world, or the controller, the governor of this world. 2 Corinthians 4:4 says, in whom the God of this world has blinded the minds of them which believe not. When you believe not, you pray not. Lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them. There's a light of wisdom. When you don't pray, you don't get the light of wisdom. The God of this world is the ruler, is the governor of the events. He's the one who is in charge of happenstance on earth. The God of this world dictates what is going to happen. Now, let me tell you, Jesus is Lord, God is King of Kings, but Satan has some measure of control on earth. You see what he said to Jesus in Matthew chapter 4, 8 and 9. Matthew 4, 8 and 9, verse 8 says, again, the devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain, and sheweth him all the kingdoms of the earth and the glory of them. He took him to the top of a tall mountain and showed him the vastness and the greatness of the kingdoms of the world and the riches there. And he said to him, all these things I'll give to thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me. See, Satan does not make an outright lie. There has to be some bit of true true things in it. Now let us examine Jesus' response. Jesus responded and said, "It is written that you shall worship the Lord your God." Notice that Jesus alone, not Jesus confronts and rebukes Satan on the account of who to worship, not on the account of Satan's ability to give kingdoms of the world. It means that Satan has some significant control of events on earth. If you do not pray, you are going to be amongst those that he has significant control over, and you govern the events of your life. When you go to chapter number 4, when you don't pray, you allow yourself to be governed by Satan. Number 4, when you don't pray, you fail to modify or intervene in the events taking place in the spiritual world. Let me tell you, because we live here on earth, the Bible says we see in part. Now, there is a physical world which we see. There is a spiritual world which is exactly or even more alive than the physical world. Oh yes, there is. Revelation chapter 3 tells us of what is happening in the spiritual world. Chapter 6, verse 3 and 6 and 8. It says in verse 3, Revelation 6, 3. Revelation 6, 3. Revelation 6. And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, "Come and see." And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. Verse 5. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, "Come and see." And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts saying, "A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou art not the oil and the wine." Number 8. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. And power was given unto them both over the fourth part of the earth, a quarter of the earth, to kill with sword, with hunger, with death, and with the beasts of the earth. Listen, there is a spiritual world that controls the crime rate, that controls murders, that controls robberies, that controls theft, that controls slander and lying. There's a spirit world that controls economics, trade, and business. There's a spirit world that controls life and death. There's a spirit world that controls famine and food security. When you don't pray, you expose yourself to live under that spirit world that controls the metrics of life. How can you let yourself live with such exposure by ignoring prayer? Number 5, when you don't pray, you allow your life to be governed by the wickedness of men. 1 John chapter 5, verse 19. I said we're going to talk like adults. 1 John 5:19. It says, "And we know that we are of God." That we know. Do we not? Do we not? We know that we are of God. "And the whole world lieth in wickedness." Listen, guys. The whole world lieth in wickedness. They are bathing in wickedness. the whole world lieth in wickedness. When we don't pray, we allow ourselves to be caught up in lying in wickedness. Wicked men. You don't know it, but there are men sitting in meetings deciding your fate. There are men sitting in laboratories making drugs that can kill you. There are men trying to make profit. No matter what happens to you, they will do anything that they can produce cheaply, so long as you're paying. There are boardrooms where meetings are being made to decide your fate, what happens to you. There are parliaments sitting making laws, deciding whether you should worship or not worship. There are men with no titles deciding what happens to you and your children and to your church and everything that concerns you. I tell you, they are there. They are sitting somewhere. When you don't pray, you surrender yourself to men, to wicked men, to the control of wicked men. The Bible says in prayer we give ourselves the will of God. When we don't give ourselves the will of God, we let ourselves get controlled by the will of man. And Jesus did not want to be controlled by the will of man. Jesus did not want to be controlled by the will of man. In Matthew chapter 16, verse 22 and verse 23, Jesus told the disciples things, and Simon Peter jumped up and verse 22 and said, Peter took him and began to rebuke him. Peter began to rebuke Jesus, saying, Be it far from thee, Lord. This shall not be unto thee. But Jesus turned and said unto Peter, Get thee behind me, Satan. Thou art an offense unto me, for thou severest not the things that be of God, but those that be of men. He rebuked Peter, telling him that you sever the things of men, but not the things of God. You are interested and enticed more by the things, the will of man, than by the will of God. I am for the will of God. You are for the will of God. Jesus opposed Simon Peter because Simon Peter wanted to encourage Jesus to focus on the will of man and not the will of God. When we don't pray, we subject ourselves to the will of men. And that offends Jesus. He says, you are an offense to me. You are an offense to me. When you don't pray, you become an offense to Jesus. So go back and ask yourself, of these 5 things, which one do I really want to let propagate in my life? Father, thank you that men always ought to pray and not to faint. Because when we don't pray, then we live by serendipity, we live by chance, we live by happenstance. And this is not good. We have seen that chance is not chance at all. Somebody is manipulating it. Human beings are manipulating it. Spirit beings are manipulating it. When we don't pray, we are affected by what men are doing, wicked men. We are affected by the God of this world. We are affected by curses. We are affected by beasts, spiritual beasts, controlling money, business, commerce, and livelihood. Lord, give us a heart that prays without fainting, that prays without ceasing. We are praying about our prayer lives.